Hello, everyone. Rick here, and welcome to Cardano Live. Happy Friday, everyone. Have a good Friday afternoon. I hope it's going well with you. I'm here with DC today, founder of Liqwid Protocol, a man who needs no introduction. He's been on many podcasts in the last several weeks. His energy just really brings things to life. DC, thank you for being here on Cardano Live today, and thank you for visiting all the different podcasts that we have out there in the world. I think all the podcasters appreciate it. How you doing on this lovely Friday afternoon, sir?
Good, Rick. Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it. Love what you're doing with Cardano Live. Big fan of everything here, since the early days of Cardano Effect, and love to see it. So yeah, it's been great making the rounds on, all of the new podcasts, and still a few out there that I want to do and, connect with some folks like Kaizen and others, but, in time. So it's been great though.
Yeah, it's been great. Your energy is fantastic. Now, here what we're doing at Cardano Live, it's just going to be a brief chat on a Friday afternoon. Sure. We're going to kind of stick to the basics with what we got here. And DC will start us off with, what is the latest status with Liqwid Protocol? So what do you got for us this afternoon, DC?
Yeah, absolutely. So just quick intro. If anyone doesn't know, Liqwid we're building an open source money market on Cardano, enabling anyone to borrow and lend native assets like ADA or a stable coin on Cardano, for example. So right now we're in the process of building our first testnet app set of contracts, I would say. So, these are prototype alpha contracts that we're building in Plutus. The on-chain code template Haskell pieces are, we're pretty comfortable in that piece of Haskell, and our devs at M Labs are, very experienced Haskellers. So working with some of the Plutus components actually is really natural to many of the Haskell devs out there. So we're experiencing that and working closely with IOHK, Plutus devs, and the whole delivery team at IOHK is honestly doing a great job of reaching out into the community and, making sure that, teams building full DeFi protocols or any, Plutus DApp is has the touch points, the resources they need to answer quick technical questions, whether it's related to Plutus application backend or whether it's related to an actual Plutus contract or some other component of the system, right? So yeah, I would definitely say end of April, early May is when we're targeting to release that alpha testnet app. Probably going to focus on 2 or 3 core contracts, like the Q token, minting and redeeming contract, essentially what users will interact with when they come and deposit some asset into the protocol is you will deposit into a smart contract that in the same transaction will mint some Q token representing, if it's Q ADA, for example, the amount of ADA you deposited plus the interest each block that ADA market is accruing essentially. And that could be for, Q US dollar coin, Q any native asset essentially on Cardano, even space coins like your shirt, Rick. So we'll see. I don't know. We'll see. It's up to the community, right? It's the whole thing is there's the market side of Liqwid, but then there's also the governance piece where the community really has a say, just like in ADA, right? There's voting power tied to the token. So I'm really excited to see how that takes off into the future post V1. But yeah, I would say right now we're definitely heads down deep in development, and like I said, having as many touch points with IOHK as possible has been great. I think, at the end of April, when we release that first testnet app and, we have our first couple hundred or, maybe even 1,000, we'll see beta testers in there, tinkering with the app. That'll really be an exciting time. And from there, it'll be just iterative updates each week. We release a new contract or a new update to the beta contract and things like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I think the people of Cardano, people who are current Cardano fans, new people coming to Cardano, they're going to appreciate your detailed level of testing, the fact that you're deploying on the early testnet in an early state to make sure everything is working well before that goes out. DeFi fans from all over the crypto system are probably going to be very interested in seeing how this works out, and we can get an update from you maybe in a month or so after you start the testnet phases, and then we're also looking at it could be August time frame before Goguen comes to mainnet full up. There's going to be a couple of testnet phases to go through. So thanks for that update status. I appreciate it, DC. And a few things people have asked on other podcasts is there are DEX protocols that are starting to introduce themselves to Cardano, like Orion, Orion Protocol, Occam. I think IOG, you were talking with in one of your podcasts earlier this week that IOG recently announced the partnership with Orion Protocol, Orion DEX, and also with Occam. How does that work with Liqwid? Pretend I'm a beginner. That should be easy. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm new to this.
Sure.
And how does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think composability across DeFi protocols is like, if you're just a student of the Ethereum game, you see that's like where the real win is had. It's like being able to build different systems that can merge, say, a money market protocol with a DEX, right? And build something that's kind of an entirely different product offering than any of those two could offer on their own. So yeah, whether it's like I think Occam and Card Starter, I don't like fully understand the intricacies of what they're trying to build, but I understand it's like a launchpad type of protocol. Those are their own kind of almost like decentralized DAO VCs on chain, which I think are really cool and interesting. And I think DuckDAO and Binance Smart Chain, I think, has had some success doing things like that. Those are like their own kind of beast and entity. But when I talk about like layer one DeFi protocols, I think about like swapping, like you said, the Cardano DEX. I think about lending and borrowing like Liqwid, or Aave if you're on Ethereum. I think about, synthetic assets, maybe insurance, these type of things that are kind of like, you have the synthetics, you have the Chainlink Oracle solution, you have these kind of base DeFi layer things that then all of these stacks or layer 3 applications are built on top of. I definitely think that there's a very, real need to have not only, a working and kind of functional DEX on Plutus from day one, but a diversity, an optionality of across DEXs, because there needs to be so many different variants of them. And whether it's a DEX, specifically for native assets, or whether it's, a DEX that allows you to use oracles and different things to bring in, assets from the real world, like equities and things on chain, or ETFs even if you wanted. So you can do some really different things out there in terms of how strict the DEX is going to be. Can anyone list a token on this DEX? Is the governance loose, right? And just looking at Ethereum, right, there's like, Uniswap is the clear lead, but SushiSwap is right behind them. They basically forked them and, introduced a token before Uni, and then they, got a liquidity moat the same way. And, there's Bancor, there's like a ton of other DEXs out there that have found real product market fit on Ethereum. So I definitely think there's going to be optionality across DEXs. And, for our token LQ, we need DEXs, even in Liqwid, the way we're setting up, some of the contract functions, for example, Liquidate is a contract function that we'd like to do in-house to be able to kind of pool capital and do liquidations at scale. But you need to have a DEX to be able to swap different assets, because the asset that the borrower might have defaulted on a loan is not necessarily the same asset that they've supplied as collateral. So this thing that you're seizing, their collateral, when you pay back their loan, you now need to actually swap that into the correct asset to redeposit that for the suppliers in that pool, right? So that's kind of it's kind of like how the system is operating. You really do rely on certain things like a DEX to be able to easily switch in and out of assets, even when you're doing things on a lending protocol. If it's not us, it's a third party, kind of trader, arbitrager, dev who's calling the Liquidate contract, who has to do that swap themselves. But there's always like a reliance on these like, kind of basic, I would say DeFi layer protocols like a DEX, things like that, like a lending system. So yeah, I think Cardax, what IOHK and Emergo are working on, what other teams in stealth mode are probably working on that haven't been publicly announced. I'm here for all of it, because I think that, we need a lot of different liquidity protocols on Cardano.
All right, thanks, DC. And it seems like we're very early still in the game, and we're going to see some synergy forming between these different protocols as time goes on. And so that kind of leads to my next question. I wanted to bring it to life for the average user out there who holds ADA. Let's say I'm the average ADA holder. Now, this is conceptual because we're still very early in the game. Okay, so let's say I'm the average ADA holder. I have ADA in Daedalus, or I have ADA in Yoroi, and I want to interact with LQ. I want to either mine it or acquire it because I find it interesting and I'm curious.
Sure.
Okay, so conceptually, let's say 6 months out from now, what would I do as the holder of ADA in my Euroyer Daedalus wallet? How would I interact with Liqwid, or what would I do next?
Right. So you would, connect your Roy or Daedalus wallet to the Liqwid DApp. You would sign a transaction body essentially that allowed the DApp to spend some of your ADA, and then you would basically take, one of the, ADA UTXOs essentially in your wallet, and you would lock that in this case, the Q ADA smart contract in Liqwid. So essentially what's happening is you're supplying liquidity to a protocol that other users may then draw loans against if they've collateralized some amount as well, right? So everyone into the system, the first thing they have to do is supply some amount. That's like kind of base. It's, there's no identity, there's no credit notions yet. Everyone supplies, even if you're not even borrowing, even if you want to borrow, no matter what, the first thing you're always going to do in this system is supply some assets and mint some Q ADA, right? So some Q tokens. So in this case, yeah, you supply your ADA, you mint Q ADA, you're already earning LQ just like that. Every single block, every user in the system who's supplied, every user who's borrowed across all markets are earning, a percent of ADA pro rata to like how many users are in that, market. So if let's say 0.5 LQ is dripped across all markets, and we're, trying to heavily skew it towards stablecoins because the mark of these protocols is most users want to come and supply collateral as ADA, but actually open loans in stablecoins. So you need to actually build a liquidity mode around stablecoins. You have to incentivize users to supply it. We still haven't fully heard the plans for what Cardano's algorithmic stablecoin is going to look like from IOH Carry Emergo, but we're keen on that, as our core team, because that's actually like going to be a real piece that we build our entire protocol around. Because the use case of just earning, LQ by supplying ADA or any other native asset on Cardano, that's very simple, and that's like, we can do that, and that's like, something that we'll probably launch with the testnet app essentially. But the ability to have a full system where you can then, borrow these assets, and actually, the asset that is going to be most demanded is stablecoin. When you look at the utilization ratio, which means like the borrowed demand, so not how much gets supplied, but how much is actually borrowed in comparison to that supply. It's like combining these two variables, supply and demand, into one. You see in Ethereum that if it's not a stable coin, not many traders or users want to open loans in it because it's volatile, right? You have to worry about the price of that asset going up and down and what that's going to do to affect the amount of interest that's accruing essentially on your loan, right? So the most common case is you come and supply some ETH or some volatile crypto, and then you open a loan in a stable coin. So we need to, from day one, have that as an option for users in our system. And again, you have a dependency on, like, in this case, a stablecoin protocol that's algorithmic going live on Cardano. That's, other users are going to supply ADA to mint this stablecoin, right? And then deposit it into LQ. And that's actually going to be the best strategy for, yield farming is what we call it, LQ, because of the way that we're going to incentivize stablecoins supplying in our system. We don't think that we're going to have an issue with, users supplying ADA. Like, that's going to be like the most common, use case, supply some ADA. And if you do open a loan, probably open it in a stable coin. But most users, by and large, just come into these systems and supply some amount. They mint their C token in Compound, A token in Aave, Q token in Liqwid, and then they just earn that interest per block, right? So that's kind of the simple, way to get into the system. There's also a yield farming contract. It's the second way to earn LQ. So beyond just like supplying or borrowing and earning some amount, dripped per block, there's like a yield farming staking contract. So it's similar to staking, any token, even ADA and Cardano. Each epoch, every 5 days, this for the first 6 months of the protocol launch, if a user has supplied some amounts, minted some Q tokens, they can supply that in the yield farming contract, and they'll also earn LQ through that. The actual percentage of LQ that's dripped through that over the first 6 months, I forget the actual number, but I want to say it's significantly higher than the user distribution. That's like the first 2 years of the protocol. I want to say it's like almost 2.5% of the 10% of LQ that's being dripped in this yield farming will be released essentially every 5 days in these epochs, because it's only a 6-month period. So that's like really like the early kind of, I want to come in and just juice some yields and gain access to the token. And it's a part of this fair token launch. It's saying, hey, everyone has the ability to provide liquidity and earn LQ at the same time, right? Like including our core team. Like we're on a vesting schedule that lasts 2 years alongside the user distribution system. So there's no, early insider investors, even our, core devs and team, we're waiting for the protocol to launch on Plutus before we even get access to these LQ tokens. Right now they're sitting on a ledger device and they were minted in the first block, of Mary. And that's just, they won't, see the light of day again until the protocol goes live on Plutus mainnet. And that's kind of, what we meant by fair token launch and the ability for all users on Cardano to easily, supply liquidity at the exact same time.
Yeah, I like your concept of fair token launch. I like how you explained that. So basically, there's no massive pre-mining, there's no massive pre-sale where, your buddies know, oh yeah, I can get like 100 million of these things before it even launches kind of deal. It launches when the protocol launches and people can start pointing their ADA at the LQ protocol, right? And then it kind of takes off from there, right? Did I summarize that correctly?
100%. Yeah, you did. There's literally zero pre-sale. There's zero early investors. Like, it's nada, right? Everyone who asks me, and I get reached out on LinkedIn, and I'm sure our other co-founders do as well. It's just like, hey guys, read please our documents, our Medium articles. We talk about fair token launch, our fair vesting schedule. It's kind of like, I would say the new wave of DeFi protocols, even on Ethereum, are trying to move towards this more like community-led system. And it starts with the fair token launch, in my opinion. And yeah, it moves forward into governance and how you truly decentralize the entire system, either gradually or all at once, however you decide to do it. But yeah, I think that this is something that we care a lot about, and it's important to say, hey, we're one of the first DeFi protocols on Cardano. This is the new way to actually distribute governance and ownership of this system. Future DeFi teams should think about launching this way as well. It shouldn't, and I think hopefully it gets to a point where it's just a standard. Like that's really the long-term goal and vision of that.
Okay. Well, thank you, DC. And you know what? We'll just be on for a few more minutes on this lovely Friday afternoon. And what I'll do is encourage viewers to go ahead and leave a question in the chat. I will check on the YouTube and the Twitch chats here in just a few minutes before we finish up. That way, if there's any burning questions, let me know in the chat. And there's always lovely comments over there in the chat, like FU, Ada, blah, blah, blah. Ada's a big fake. Yeah, okay, whatever. So anyway, back to what we were saying so for new users, they got a good idea of how to interact with the protocol. I put a link down below to liquid.finance. That's in the description. So if you want to check out the website at Liquid Finance. And DC, what I'm presuming is as the protocol begins the launch, you're going to have instructions over on the website. There is a Liquid Finance Twitter account, and there will be more information coming out as the time approaches, so users will know how to interact with the Liquid protocol.
Yeah, 100%. There will be lots of demos, YouTube videos, visuals, guides. Like we're going to make LE5s. Like it's going to be very simple to use our system as it should be, right? And cost efficient and the resource determinism and all the things you get from building on Cardano. Like we plan on like doing this the right way the first time. And, that means taking the time to get all that documentation right before we actually launch this thing. And we have the team and the resources, secured already to do this. So yeah, it will be very simple for any user who actually wants to use the system from day one to look at the docs and things that we're going to produce when we get to that point in the next few months to actually use it. And we'll go on podcasts. We'll go on with Big Pay and some others, and we'll make, very dedicated content to show, hey, how I connect my Yoroi, how I connect my data list. Now I'm into Liquid, now I've supplied, now I want to withdraw, or, et cetera. So these things will come.
That's fantastic. And there's over 48 Cardano YouTubers out there I'm aware of who lean Cardano, who will probably be making videos as well. So right now what people can do is if you want to learn more about Liquid, just search YouTube for LIQWID on YouTube. DC has done a bunch of deep dives lately with many of your favorite Cardano YouTubers. So go ahead and check it out over there on YouTube. Some people are starting to stream over on Twitch, so you might find it available on Twitch as well. And thank you for everything you do, DC. I'm going to check on the questions, and then we'll wrap it up if there's anything else you have for the viewers. And it looks like there's a few from WonderSam12 on YouTube. He says, do you see Liquid as being a threat to Uniswap? I don't.
No, not really a threat to Uniswap. It's more like the Aave compound, like lending use case is what we're trying to, build Liquid around. I'd say like Cardano DEX or the DEX that IOHK and Emergo are working on, that's probably more a threat to Uniswap.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And there's one from Klaus Ehrenberg. You already kind of answered this. When will you be on the Pioneers testnet? I believe that was after April, after the private testnet. We roll into May, I believe, is the public testnet. Is that when you would be on the Pioneers public testnet?
Yeah, around that like late April, I would say early May timeline. Yes.
Okay. Oh, so I guess are you doing? Oops, I accidentally clicked on a question there. Okay, I'll go ahead and read that one since I clicked on it. But basically, you're going to hit the private, right? And then you're going to hit the follow-up public Pioneer testnet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We're under NDA, so I don't even know how much I can talk about some of these things. But I would say we're going to do some things, and we're working closely with the IOHK devs, and we'll have around the same time as the public testnet launch, our testnet either already launched or shortly after.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Oh, thanks. Sorry about that. One question I never ask is I never ask the question, do you have an NDA? Because by answering the question, it kind of like steps on the NDA. So I'll never ask that question. I accidentally clicked on Richard's question, but I will take luck. I will take luck on a Friday. Richard had a great question here, and he said, would love to hear the real world use cases after implementation. How can someone who needs a loan in a third world country, now third world country is an example, it could be a first world or second world country, get it via Liqwid. Thanks, guys. Keep doing these great things. And thank you, Richard, for the question. And I think the general idea, there's two different kinds of users. There's users like me who hold ADA, and I'm like, hey, I want to check out this Liquid protocol. So I point my ADA and I try to earn liquidity. And then there's the other users who want to take out a loan, right?
Right.
And those users are... Or take out a loan, let's say developers, entrepreneurs, people who are building a company, and they say, hey, I can withdraw a loan on this platform and hire the developers and hire the marketers and deploy the media platforms, everything that costs time and money. Is that kind of the general idea to help with Richard's question here?
Yeah, great question, Richard. So I would say this. After you deploy like open source liquidity, for lending and interest rate curves, there's a lot of secondary product offerings you can build on top of that structure that make the system a lot more capital efficient for borrowers. And what does that mean, right? The Alice or Bob who lives in Nigeria and doesn't even know what Cardano is or cryptocurrency, but has a mobile phone and has apps that today allow them to download an app like OPay, for instance, or Carbon. There's many out there in Nigeria, and they can essentially read some of the data points on their mobile device, give them an output like a credit score essentially, and actually a credit line, say up to $500 for first-time borrowers. And now you've just entered a loan with zero collateral, truly. And all that they've taken essentially is a couple of data points, your equivalent, your national identity number, right? That the Bank of International Settlements in Nigeria uses, similar to your SSN in America or other places, right? So this is like, to me, where we need to be in terms of competition in the future. How do you get there is the real question, right? And I think the answer is you partner with companies that have already developed equivalent credit risk scoring models and systems that allow them to do more capital efficient lending products, whether it's because they're using credit and identity together and they're, machine learning essentially and data models that they've, in-house developed to be able to use this model to kind of score risk and essentially pool risk and different credit terms based on those risk outcomes and metrics, or whether you're just doing something that's insurance-backed lending, and that's a whole different realm that you can move into essentially. If you're saying, hey, would you rather yield farm at 150% uninsured, or would you rather 100% APY insured yield farming, right? And like you can build simple insurance systems, especially around the UTXO model of Plutus, that allow you to do really cool things with not only insurance, but like prediction dApps, prediction markets based on certain DeFi protocols built on Plutus, and just being able to call the UTXO set will allow you to actually build a lot of the kind of global state guarantees and things that you would need as inputs into an insurance dApp or protocol. So yeah, there's things that you can do, I think, once you have a lending system, especially on a public blockchain like Cardano, that will make it a lot more capital efficient, will allow users, for example, to come into our system who don't know what crypto is, but maybe just have a Yoroi wallet or a dataless wallet, and can actually, or maybe just have an Atala Prism wallet. Like, let's talk about that, because that's like the real use case. Like, that's where you're going to actually onboard the Alices and Bobs who don't know about crypto, right? So I have this Atala Prism DID wallet. It can hold all my data points, like I'm talking about, my national identity card, my college information, my professional information, and maybe even some ADA, right? And now I can connect to any Cardano dApp, right, like a Liqwid, to essentially say, okay, I've gone through this Atala Prism system. Maybe there's a credit module in there, and there's an integration with a company who maybe already has a credit risk scoring product. So now I've gone through Atala Prism, and I've used this, third-party product to essentially output a credit score. Say it's, a credit score like a FICO equivalent. Maybe I'm like a, 700, so middle of the road, pretty decent, borrow-worthy individual. What if I can come into Liqwid, mint an NFT in a stablecoin lending specific pool, and all of a sudden I'm doing zero collateral lending, or borrowing essentially at, a fixed maybe 12 to 15% borrow rate. For the suppliers in Liqwid, the stablecoin suppliers, they're saying, hey, if I can rely on, Atala Prism, identity system, and this third-party app to handle all the credit and risk metrics and scoring of these individuals who are minting these NFT tokens, allowing them to access the stablecoin, kind of zero collateral, but like, higher level of potential return for me as a supplier. Like, I'm absolutely going to do that if the risk reward benefit for me personally makes sense. And just providing that as an option is going to be, such a huge product, because it's saying, hey, if the normal stablecoin lending pool is only earning you 4% APY, here's access to this, slightly higher risk, because you definitely have to price in the fact that some of these users might default. But essentially, risk that's actually, kind of well structured and maintained through the integration with Atala Prism and this credit risk scoring product already, so that by the time they come into your system, these are well vetted borrowers, right? And you can actually feel confident giving them a zero collateral loan at 12%, APY, and earn that as a supplier. So that's going to be, where Liqwid meets the real world. And I think that's going to be where the rubber meets the road for Cardano and just mainstream adoption, right? Because you're saying, like, IOHK has big plans. Like, they want to onboard 100 million users into Atala Prism, right? So you're saying people who have no idea what cryptocurrency is, but are using government-built solutions, right, that mandate them to download this Atala Prism module application on their phone, right? And it's iOS, Android, everywhere. So that's the real kind of, I guess, when Liqwid starts to compete with not just like the Aves, the Compounds, or anything else on DeFi Ethereum, but like the OPAs, the Carbon, the neo kind of Web2 banks that are operating, and in just digital app format in places like Nigeria, Sub-Saharan, Southeast Africa, Southeast Asia. So these are the markets that we want to enter, come 2022 and beyond. To get there, we just have to deploy a V1 that's functional, that's, cost efficient, that's secure, that's, just a really seamless user experience essentially. And from there, it's like, okay, how complex do we want to go into identity? How deep do we want to go down the insurance rabbit hole? Like, do we want to just directly use a credit system built from another party, or do we want to build our own, credit algorithm directly native into Liqwid? So those are the type of like questions you have to ask when you're saying, how do we get more capital efficient products built? But yeah, I would say, honestly, even thinking this way, we're so far ahead of the game. When you look at these Ethereum DeFi protocols, there's no notion of identity, right? There's no notion of credit, not at scale, at least, at the protocols that are really winning out. You look at the top 5 to 10 DeFi systems. So the things you get from Cardano, it's like, you can't really understate it enough. Like, it really is like a game changer for identity, for protocol governance, for, insurance systems and global state guarantees, resource determinism, like all these things that I could probably talk about for way too long. And, there's other trade-offs too, right? We have to have a real conversation around mini UTXO, some things that you just have to deal with in this UTXO Plutus environment that make almost like the Ethereum accounts world. It's like, it's akin to like how object-oriented programming is to functional programming. Like, they're literally just like, they're two different worlds essentially. And you have to make that leap from, okay, you were a student of the game of the Ethereum DeFi systems. You see and understand what's been built here. How do you transpose this into a Plutus UTXO working environment that's like very optimized and efficient and does things like, in a very secure and kind of, how do I say this, deterministic, approach. So yeah, It's good though.
Yeah, that's good to hear. DC, I learned something new from you every time we talk, every time I watch one of your podcasts. I love talking to you, and great having you on here this afternoon. I think the viewers got a lot out of it as well. One thing I learned new today was that there is some risk assessment done by the borrowers, two different groups of users, the lenders who got people like me, buy, sell, trade, hodl, right? And then the borrowers, and there is some risk assessment capabilities for the borrowers who are also users of the protocol. So really good stuff, man. I love it when I learn something new, and always great to talk with you. You got anything else for the viewers? I want to thank Richard for that question. That was fantastic. Thank you, Richard. Anything else for the viewers before we wrap it up, sir?
That was awesome, man. Thank you. I would just say, if you want to learn more about Liqwid, like check out our Medium intro series. Just Medium Liqwid intro series. I'll drop the link here, Rick. Also follow us on Twitter. Join the community on Discord. Like, we're really, trying to be a community-led protocol on Cardano, and kind of pave a way for other DeFi systems that are certainly going to come after us. You look at them; they're already, the new crop is coming up in idea scale, and it's like, I'm happy to talk to any of these founders. I talked to a few of them, who are building in stealth mode, and they reach out to me, and I'm happy to give any advice for the Catalyst process or our experience building on Plutus or anything I can do to kind of help another team who's building a DeFi system, even if it's a competitor to Liqwid. We're that early where we need competitors to Liqwid, to be honest. So it's not even like that. So yeah, this has been great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, DC. And just hang on the line as we wrap it up here, and I'll get those links from you and drop them down in the description. So, and thank you to all the viewers who are available on Twitch, DLive, Odyssey, live streaming on Facebook. So check out the different platforms, whichever one is your favorite. You shouldn't have to jump around too much. Y'all have a great Friday afternoon, and thank you, DC. We'll see you again here sometime.
Cheers.